Hey guys, Tony Rowe back again with another Lead Chess Rapid game against DrMohammed, rated 2255. And of course he plays knight c3. Alright, we'll go d5 this time. I think in the past maybe it's not on YouTube, I've gone e5 and just transposed to a Vienna. I'm not about that life today. Now I think bishop c5, knight b6. Not knight b6. Knight b6, bishop b3, c5 is away. Knight f3. So this is almost just like a bizarre Scandinavian at this point. I don't know anything about this position. My first instinct is to go c5 since he sort of let me do this. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to maybe shoot for a setup with g6, bishop g7. I like that structure. He goes bishop c4. I can even think about knight c7 now. But he flicks in the check. Which way? So I can go bishop d7, knight d5, bishop takes b5. I'm sure that's good for me. So bishop d7 he's probably taking. I have to take with the queen. Knight c6. Knight c6 seems possible. I mean, bishop takes c6, b takes c6 would definitely jack up my pawns pretty bad. But I think having the light squared bishop is reasonable compensation. Bishop d7. Okay, bishop d7 just seems more solid. I'm just going to play that. The thing I don't like about this is he can play bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, knight d5. Just try and lame me out. Knight c7 now. Yeah, this is starting to look of moderate lameness. Maybe I can play knight takes c3 first. I'm going to do that just to try and imbalance the game in some way. I was looking at knight c7, but then bishop takes. Okay, he's going to take here anyway. Oh, he was forced to take. What an idiot. Okay, I get it. I'm going to take with the queen. I'm actually not sure. So b takes c3. I guess e6 or knight c6. I'll just go knight c6. Oh. I don't know. He can go d4 now, and I think I'm just going to go e6, and the position is essentially pretty much equal. Yeah, I mean, this is not the most ambitious opening play I've ever seen. It's weird that this guy's 2260 classical, 2000 blitz, 1800 rapid or bullet. Rook b1. Okay, I'll just go e6. I don't see an actual threat there. And now d4. If I go bishop e7, is d5 a threat? Probably not. Bishop e7, d5. I don't think so. I think even, well, maybe just e takes is the easiest. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Bishop e7, d takes c5. The problem is bishop takes c5, queen takes d7, takes, and then here, maybe b6. So my problem with bishop e7 is d takes c5, and he's threatening queen takes d7 check, king takes d7, rook takes b7 check. And, you know, if I take, so bishop e7, D takes c5, queen takes d1, rook takes d1. I mean, I guess he's probably not keeping all of these pawns, but how do I guard b7 in that case? Rook b8, bishop f4. So I guess bishop e7, d takes c5. Maybe queen c7 is forced. And then I have to decide whether or not... I mean, is it even worth thinking about this? Is it even worth going into something like this? If I just go b6, then d takes c5, I think I can even just take and allow my king to go to d7, or I could just take on d1, then play here. That seems very solid for black. b6. Okay. Maybe he can go bishop e3, but I'm not super worried about that. I think even worst case scenario, I can just... Maybe I can even go against bishop a3. Bishop e7. No, he doesn't care. So he wants to go d5. I'm not gonna go for that shenanigans. I mean, what I would really love is to go into some kind of an endgame where I can try and start exploiting these weak pawns along open files somehow. I mean, that is the only way I can conceivably drum up winning chances in this relatively lame, sort of not quite ending, maybe not quite opening, not quite middle game. I don't know what I'd call this. I mean, I think black is totally fine. I don't think white has posed me very many problems. Bishop b2. Not the square I would think he would put that piece on. So what's his idea here? I don't even know. I mean, I can't conceive of a plan that would involve bishop b2. I mean, eventually he's going to go c4, but he's always going to have to really fracture his structure. Essentially go into the c2 and c4 pawn. Double isolated structure. It just looks weird. Okay, I'm just going to castle. If he takes on c5, I'll take on d1, and then play bishop takes c5. He can go rook d7 in that case, but I don't think I actually even care. I think just rook d8, rook a to d1 takes, rook takes, rook a d8. And he has to exchange because something like rook c7 would allow rook d1 mate, or mate in 2, rather. I played a game before this, actually, against Sharpness V in a Birds opening, so I've had 2 blacks in a row. And, interesting. And, I recorded, I would say, about half of it without my screen capture on. So the screen capture was on, but it wasn't focused on the right window, and it was just recording black screen. And so I had to just toss it. Okay, I'm not going to think very long. I'm just going to take. He wants to play along this long diagonal somehow, so I assume that he's going to take with the bishop here. I just simply don't believe it. I wonder if he takes with the bishop, if I can even just go f6 and declare that, you know, f6 and then e5 next move and just positionally squeeze the life out of him. If f6... If f6, maybe queen g4, and then I can't go e5 because of the pin. Can I deflect his queen from the bishop somehow in that position? So f6, queen g4, like h5. Queen f4. Is that working? Oh, no, he can take on e6 check. I'm an idiot. Okay, all right. That doesn't work at all. So maybe I need something else. So queen g4 is actually kind of a threat, no? Like if it was his turn, he would just play queen g4 and I'd actually be in some trouble. because f6, queen e6 check, and I'm probably close to losing there. And how else do I defend against the mate? So that's irritating. Rook fd8 maybe. And just hit the bishop. If he goes c3, then at least on queen g4 I have like bishop f8 or something. I'm going to go rook fd8, and I want my other rook on the c-file at some point. So probably if he goes c3, maybe my next move is rook a to c8. Or do I go f6 now? Because now queen g4, e5, my queen is protected. So that's kind of a thing. F6. E6 is weak, though. I'm always going e5, though, aren't I? I'm not sure about that. Maybe I should wait for a better time. Queen. I was about to say queen a4. Queen a4 hangs a queen. Positionally, a good move. Tactically, maybe the worst move. e5 doesn't appear to do anything. Rook a to c8 is the most natural move. There's also things like queen c6, queen b7, queen c7, or this f6 move. f6, f4 I'm a little bit worried about, and then I'm going to have to deal with this nonsense for the rest of the game. It's starting to get moderately alarming that like queen g4, bishop f8, rook e3, and swinging over. I'm not in love with some of the stuff that's happening here. So I'm trying to use my time here and understand how I'm not gonna get checkmated here. Well, I'm gonna start with rook a to c8. This is a natural enough move. I think his only real chance is to go queen g4. Yeah. And not bishop f6. In case you guys were wondering, there is a pin. I'm thinking about g6 right away. Bishop f8 is possible, but like rook e3, and I think eventually I'm going to have to go g6 anyway, and I'm starting to think if I'm going to go g6 anyway, maybe I'd rather have my bishop on e7. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm just going to play g6. I'm running a little low on time. I don't want to get into too much trouble here. Well, I like all my positional trumps. I mean, he's essentially losing a pawn. I mean, he can't stop me from winning the c4 pawn, but I might get checkmated. There's a distinct possibility that I'm going to get checkmated in this game. Queen f4, so he's trying to get in. It doesn't yet come with a threat, because I can just go bishop f8. Can I nom on this? I want to. I want to pretty bad. One thing I'm thinking is, like, if I take on c4... Ah, queen e5. I get it. I see what you're doing. Queen f4. More serious than I once thought. Okay, well... One idea is just simply rook takes c4, queen e5, rook takes d4, c takes d4, queen takes d4, and I go into the ending and exchange down, but for 2 pawns, and my position is extremely solid. That is very likely a pretty clean draw. I don't think I can ever lose that. Do I risk f6 here? I'm just going to go into this ending. I think I can hold it. This is purely a practical decision here, probably not the theoretical best move. He does, now that I think about it, though, have like rook b to d1, and I just have to still reckon with the threat of queen e5 without winning anything back. Well, where does all my time... Like, it's honestly a little frustrating. Sometimes I look down at my clock and it's like, where did all my time go? And then I end up losing these games. It's a little frustrating. I simply don't get it. So now rook b to d1. What am I actually doing there? Maybe queen d5. And queen e5, of course, I'm just gonna... I could not trade queens fast enough there. And I'm not super scared of the discovery because I can just take on d1 check or take on d1 in all those cases. Okay, well... Let's lay him out here. I suppose he can keep the queens on. But I think even in that case, I'm not that sad. The problem white has here is that I'm just going to put my bishop on c5 and play a5 and h5, and I'm going to essentially have 0 weaknesses and no real way for him to put pressure. Sure. Okay. He's going to take, probably play rook d1. I can think about e5 or just bishop c5, I think is easy enough. I think I should be able to hold this. This was kind of a lame decision on my part, but I was a little bit afraid that with a serious time disadvantage, that having to continually, like, in these quick games, it's hard to defend against pressure over and over again. Okay, I'm going to go h5 before he thinks about playing g4. h5 is a pretty key defensive move, actually. I think if I was him, I would have maybe played something like rook d1, and if bishop c5, then I might have played like g4 there or something. But maybe in that case I can go g5, I don't know. He goes rook d1. If I go e5, he'll play rook c1. And if I go bishop c5 in that case, he can play rook d1. If I go e5, he can play f4. If Bishop c5, rook d7, a5. Yeah, I don't think there's actually like almost. I think this is like a theoretical fortress. I mean, I have one single weakness, and it's going to be on f7, and I guess the only way he can really beat me here is to like activate his king somehow to some annoying square like c6, b6, and like sack the rook for the bishop. But I don't think I have to allow that. He's trying to bait me into taking that. I think that helps me, though. I mean, I think the only way he wins is if he can keep this a-pawn and somehow like wipe out my queenside for it. So he wants me to take, then rook a1, bishop c5, rook takes a7. Oh, mouse slip. I don't think it much matters. Don't be too sad about it, Dr. Mohammed. I guess I mean, okay, I'll take it. Guess I'll go king g7. He can try and maybe like snake his king all the way around to the e8 square. Maybe that's the only way he can win. I don't know. I'm just going to sort of move around my business here. I'm guessing he's going to play f3, rather. I almost said e3. That's not right. I'm going to put my king on g6 just in case he goes like king e8 and then I have to... If he goes king e5, I'm going to go bishop back to c5. I'm going to send him a draw offer. I don't think he's going to take it. If I was white, I wouldn't take it yet. I would just make me sit here in time trouble. King e5, bishop d6, rook b8. At some point, I'm sort of just going f5 check. Chess jokes. Not that funny. So if king e5, bishop c5, rook b8, just waiting. What do I play? Maybe just king g7, waiting again, and ask him how he intends to get in. I wouldn't be scared of the b-pawn, Dr. Mohammed. That thing's not going anywhere. I'm scared of my own f-pawn, so I somehow feel like this circuit might have been a more logical way to try and win, but... And he, after a long thing, takes the draw, which I am very happy for with 10 seconds left on my clock. So let's take a look. Interesting game. So this 2 knight c3 is not a bad move. I just really, when I play the Alekhine's defense, I want you to, quote unquote, throw your pawns at my horsey and make it dance. So that's kind of an inside joke. It's probably only funny for me. So maybe c5 is, if I want to win, I should think about this a little bit more. I thought about bishop g4 very briefly also, because it reminded me of this line in the, how did I play? Oh, pretty solid. Oh, Dr. Mohammed edges me out on average centipawn lost by 1. Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can see that. That's kind of funny. So I was reminded of bishop g4 because of this line in the knight f3 Scandi, where black is, I think really it's close to being theoretically the only move to go bishop g4, and then bishop e2, knight c6, and then d4 castles long is the usual line, and this line sort of reminded me of that. So after knight f6 takes, I thought about going here, and after bishop e2, maybe just knight c6. And I don't know, maybe even queen d7 and castles long, or first knight takes c3 and then queen d6 or something and then castles long. I'm not sure. This seems like an interesting way to play. Because c5, yeah, it allows this... It allows this... I was looking at bishop c4 and then like knight c7. Or yeah, e6 makes a lot of sense. The e6 is the most natural move, or bishop takes... or knight takes c3, but I always like to try and keep as many pieces on as possible. Sorry. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, I wonder, this check just doesn't keep a lot of life in the position. I think maybe this would be interesting. I noticed that d4 seems to score pretty well. I'm not sure. I mean, there are strategic risks with taking on this position, but I also like that I'm the only one that has this light squared bishop. Yeah, knight e4, though, might be maybe just queen b6 in that case. I don't want to go e6 because then I'm like bragging about having this light square bishop, and then I just block it in with these pawns of sadness here. So bishop f5. He takes on c5. e5. What? What is this nonsense? If I go here... Ah, knight b4 is a threat. If d4, because he can no longer go d3. That's pretty slick. And if he just moves the knight A5. Okay, A5, A4. Maybe knight B4. D3. Then E4. Wow, this is crazy. I mean, only a computer would ever find bishop F5, then E5. That's weird. Sorry about it. Hope you're cool with being on YouTube. And the thing I didn't like about playing C5 is once he flicked out bishop B5 check, bishop D7, it's possible for him to just hoover off all these pieces and like castle. And after knight C6, black is totally comfortable, but really how am I pressing for a win here? Now that I look at it, B3 is, I guess I can go E5, but maybe I should go E6 so that I can be B3, bishop E7, bishop B2 with just castles. Because now if I want to play, if I go knight C6 first, B3, E7, then you can go bishop B2, and I have this annoyance. Computer wants me to just sack this pawn, but yeah, I'm not sure I'm about that. I don't like, if here, then I have to, like, you know, like make a lot of effort to work up compensation. I'd rather just play the solid move. So yeah, practically speaking, maybe I need to look at this and decide what the best way is to sort of maximize the complications. Maybe takes G6, just leaving as many pieces on as humanly possible. If he goes D4, I can go bishop G7. Like, he moves his bishop to some square. Computer likes bishop E2. Database. Most people play bishop C4, but apparently it's not very good. I mean, bishop E2, let's say, castles. Maybe now I can go C5. And this position is a little bit more unclear. Maybe I can just go B6, bishop B7, knight D7, and it's kind of like a Grunfeld. I'm playing with this bishop G7 and this C5 break against white's weakened pawn structure. So maybe that's a better way to go. This is actually, now that I look at it, something that's to my taste, and I'd probably play this way in the future, so that's good to know. The way I played was kind of lame. Yeah, for some reason when I took on C3, I just didn't even see that this taking was forced, but of course it's forced, or else it hangs the bishop, takes. If he really wanted to make the game boring, he could play this way, and after this, there would be not that much. Oops, I forgot to turn off Facebook. Sorry about that. And here, yeah, I looked at bishop E7. I looked at bishop D7, but then I was worried what happens after D takes C5. And the problem is that just B7 is really loose now that B6 is not possible. Like, of course, okay, this hangs a pawn outright. That's terrible. And if I take, because now I can't castle long because the rook's on D1, I'm at a loss for, I mean, white might be winning in this position. You know, there's no good way for me to defend B7 because rook B8, bishop F4. I think I mentioned that during the game. So yeah, takes is, I mean, okay, how can I be that much worse? Yeah, like probably queen C7. I can't be that much worse with these pawns. It's hard for me to believe that I'm not at some point going to pick up C5, but it doesn't seem like I should even really bother. I think B6 is just the most practical and easiest way to play. Bishop B2 is more interesting than I gave it credit for. To me, it looked kind of silly to put the bishop on the B2 square, but there are some dynamic problems that black faces. He does have to accept this structure, and I think objectively black must be better, but I have to not get checkmated. And with my habitual time trouble, it's not that easy. Rook FC8. So same idea, clear out the F8 rook so you can go bishop F8, I presume, but just instead of rook D8, you're attacking the C4 pawn immediately. So if here, bishop F8, rook E3, takes C3. I mean, this seems relatively similar to what we got in the game, and could even transpose, like, if something like rook FD8. And I was just kind of a little bit scared of this position. I mean, even if it's not objectively dangerous, I sort of feel like on a practical level it's pretty dangerous. Like, what do I guess I'm threatening bishop g7, sort of. Trading off this bishop and winning a pawn. I thought about h4 here, but maybe just bishop g7 is pretty clear. Like, he just, I mean, h5, okay, but everything's hanging now, and I'm going to play rook d1 check and just take everything off. Like, this is winning for black, I'm certain. So, I got a little panicky, I think. So is the move that I played any different? So I played rook fd8, c3, protecting the bishop, of course. Hold on. Let's look at f6 for a second. I looked at f6, but then queen g4. I got a little nervous. Rightfully so. I mean, what do I do about this? Okay, I can go rook d8, and if takes, or probably rook f. Yeah, but rook f7, you can just check and it's a draw, right? It's probably a draw anyway, because this rook is so active. I mean, like g3, and I can go rook f7 and he can check again. But if I don't do that, he's going to put a second rook on the long dias. Okay, so f6 is kind of stinky. So rook fd8, c3, and now f6. I was worried about f4, and just again, queen g4 is a threat. Rook here, queen g4, takes. I guess in this case, something like this is again better for black, but how much so after rook e7? In this case, rook a5, so probably a lot better for black. Maybe f6 is worth considering. I'm not sure. It just looks loose. It's not right. If I could guarantee I could get an e5, I'd play f6 in a heartbeat, but it doesn't seem like I can. Okay, so queen c6. Yeah, I think rook a to c8 is more natural, though. Takes. If bishop f8 seemed fine. Really? What's the idea? Okay, come on. Come on, Stockfish. You're just being rude. That's a clever idea. So if just like c4 or something. Yeah, I mean, this looks scary, but there's no real knockout blow. That's funny, though. Computers. c5 and then bishop f6. That is stupid. That's a good idea, though. Queen f4, presumably the same idea. Yeah, queen c7 I did have. And if here, then I get to trade off the bishops, which I really like. He's just left with all kinds of weaknesses. No real play. If here, then bishop f8, then he can, go back, whatever. But maybe queen e5 is still a threat. But yeah, I think now that I really look at the position, the key is to just trade off the dark square bishop. For me, that was counterintuitive because I have all of these weaknesses, and I was like a little bit scared to trade off the dark square bishop and leave myself with these kingside weaknesses. But really, the only way I'm getting checkmated is if he puts a queen on g7 or a queen on h8, and he can't do that if I trade off this bishop. So maybe, yeah, queen c7 and then like queen e3. I just go bishop f8, and he can't go queen e5, and he also can't stop bishop g7. So if here, then just bishop g7, and I think I'm just much better. So this was the plan, and this makes a lot of sense now that I look at it. I just didn't sort of understand what I was doing quick enough in this position, and I didn't want to lose. So I lost the game before this, and I was just honestly a little bit tilted and a little bit pissed off that I lost as black in the bird. But and I was objectively probably close to winning in that game, and I just completely bungled the technical part. You can find that game in my profile if you'd like, and I was just irritated at myself. So I did think that maybe takes, and like either rook c1, bishop c5, g4, or rook d1, maybe like e5, g4 or something might have been a better try for white. I guess maybe even here I can just go h6. And in most endgames when you're the defender, you'll find in chess that the f7, g6, h5 pawn structure is mostly the ideal case. So if we go to where I played h5, putting your pawn chain in this way leaves you with the least number of weaknesses on the 7th rank, and your only weakness is very easily defendable by a king, and also it allows your king to be a little bit more centralized. Like okay, you can also go f5 and only have one weakness on the 7th rank, but it's your h7 pawn, which will need constant babysitting from relatively crappy squares by your king, and it also exposes the 7th rank. So playing the opposite way allows your king to come to g7, and if a rook comes to c7, okay, I'm hunkering down on the f7 pawn, and my king can stay in a relatively active centralized square. Even after e5, I can come to e6, and the rook doesn't have access to a lot of squares on the 7th rank. And also, in these endings where you're defending, I mean, you clearly have no winning chances, you want to exchange off as many pawns as humanly possible. The more pawns you have, the worse for you. And so when you play h5, it makes it hard for white to advance pawns on this kingside wing without at least trading off your h-pawn. Or completely like blocking up the structure, which obviously he doesn't want to do either. So in order to make progress, usually white needs some kind of a pawn play, and it's hard to do that. I thought about e5. e5 seems fine, but then f4, and yeah, I guess I can just go king e7. I just looked at this and takes, and I was like, I don't want to mess with this. But I can just allow him to take, and yeah, I mean this is probably fine as well. g3, maybe I can just go h4 in that case and trade off a bunch of pawns. So that's, I mean, objectively this is a draw no matter what. I'm just way too solid. And he doesn't really have much of anything here. I played g5 just to give my king some wiggle room. So, and again, like, I'm just gaining some space to sort of, I'm making sure I'm gaining some space, but not giving myself a lot of weaknesses in that. So if he wants to try and push pawns, he has to trade, essentially. What you don't want is to like keep all of your pawns, like here, and allow white to gain like massive amounts of space and cramp your king and leave you sort of at his mercy. So it's a little bit, and yeah, a3 is a mouse slip, but I don't think it much matters. Like DrMohammed wanted to go a4. Okay, I'll just play a5 probably, and how is he going to make progress? Rook d7, king, actually probably g5. And in fact, maybe I should go g5 here, because a5, again, similar to like playing h5 to stop g4, maybe I should go g5. I don't need to go a5 yet, but if I go, sorry, I'm screwing this up. If he goes a4 and I go a5, maybe he can play f4 and gain a tiny bit of space on the king side, which I don't really have to allow. Maybe I should, as in the game, maybe I should just take the opportunity right here even and go g5 and just stop all that shenanigans. And if king e2, then king g7, etc. And yeah, I think this should be a very solid draw. What else is there to say about this? So in the game, yeah, like I said, a3 takes, rook a1 takes. Probably I should go g5 here. But king g7, rook b7, I should go g5 here, which I did. And if king e2, king g6, king e2. I did think about h4. I mean, h4 makes a lot of sense, just continuing in the same spirit of locking down all the pawns. If he goes king d... Oh, he can't go king d3. f3 first. And yeah, probably I should just go f6 and king f5 and just sit. I mean, how does he make progress after king d3, king f5, king c4, e5, rook f7, and if I just keep shuffling my bishop around, what does he do? He can't get in. Can he bring his king over here? So like if I go all the way to like... Ah, okay. So king f4, rook f6, king g3, and probably black's winning now, or very close to it. King here, bishop f4 maybe. Really? King f5 takes, king g4. What? If here, here... Ah, so he's just going to zugzwang me out of the game there. So if takes, king g3, king there, takes... Ah, just takes. And takes here, he can't save h3. But in this case... Ah, he can save h3, which is the issue. Okay. I get it. I get it. So interesting. So that's good to know that in this type of ending, because this type of ending actually will come up in chess more than you would think it would. And it's interesting to know in this ending that essentially this is a good learning experience. So rook against bishop, where you have sort of this quasi-fortress. I guess, so let's say I don't do that. Let's say I don't push h4 and I just sit around like I did in the game. He goes f3, and let's say he goes king c4. And if I just wait, like if I just sit here and do nothing, am I in trouble at all? So like here, why is rook c7 good? No comprende. Here. Ah, it's waiting. So I get it. The point is that if I just wait with king f6 now, king e8 wins a pawn. And of course, king g7, king e8 also wins a pawn. The only way I don't win a pawn on king e8 is if I can play f5. So I have to move the bishop somewhere. And now king e8, f5, king e7, because the bishop is not on c5. Wow. So if here, check and then rook e6, bishop d4. Here first, bishop d4, king e6. And he's running out of moves. Rook c5, if he moves his king, I go king f5. So king here, king f5, and one of these pawns is falling now. Bishop c5, of course, hangs this pawn. So if b5, check. Let's say he goes here. Ah, and then he's losing this pawn. And this is starting to become troublesome. So yeah, it's interesting to note that... But critical move is rook c7. It's just a waiting move. I'm willing to bet rook a7 is the same. Yeah, you just need to wait along the 7th rank so that black either concedes the f7 pawn by going king f6, king g7 or whatever, or he concedes the e7 square with the bishop. Of course, keeping the you can't keep the bishop guarding the e7 square and also protect this b6 pawn. Wait, so if I go rook a7, what if he goes bishop b4? Then rook c7, bishop c5, rook b7, and you've triangulated with your rook. Wow, this endgame is actually completely fascinating. I'm totally in love with this now. So this is interesting. And now, of course, is the same. Any move by the bishop along this diagonal loses the b pawn. Any move this way, like this move, allows king e8, f5, king e7. Hitting here. Okay. So this plan to go king e8 is actually irritating if I allow white to do it. But for instance, at any given time, black needs to be a little bit more active and needs to go f5. And he really can't take, because I'll take with the pawn and then just play g4 or something. And that's very easily drawn. So he has to go something like king d7. Ah, but do I just put my king on f4 then? Like king e5. Rook c6, take, king g4 is just a clear draw. And really only black can win. So that's the plan. I mean, if white starts going towards this weakness on f7, you just get rid of it at sort of an opportune moment. Probably when his king is the farthest away makes a lot of sense. So like, I should go like king c4, maybe just like bishop f2, and then if king b5, then I just go f5. And there's just no way that the white has 0 winning chances. I'm just going to take and then play king up somewhere. So that's good to know. But it's also good to know that probably at the earliest opportunity, I should just play h5 and g5 immediately. That's the clearest defense. And then, like, yeah, I can just wait, I think. And presumably I'm just going to go f5 anyway if he's trying to do this again. So like king e2, king g7, king d3. I always forget that. He's going to go f3. But that's an important point because f3 is a hook for me to trade off more pawns. So king g6, king d3. Maybe even h4, king c4. And maybe that's the easiest. Maybe now I can just go. Okay, that's hilarious. There's this threat. Okay, so if he goes rook b7, so I don't have that, and I just go here, here, maybe f5 now, and yeah, there's really nothing. I mean, I wonder if black can just go g4 right away. I mean, I think I can just wait. I mean, okay, like bishop c5, he can check me. I can just go here. Can he really do anything if I just wait? Now, I mean, I even have the plan of getting in. So if here, then maybe just here is easy enough. And yeah, the threat of king g3 sort of compels him to attack my bishop over and over again. So okay, so if the king starts wandering over, black just pushes. Coaxes some weakness, like white has to make a weakness here to even start wandering with the king. Like he has to go, like let's say here, he has to go f3, and then if the king wanders too far, I can even go like f6, h4, and then threaten to get into the g3 square or something, and that should be an easy draw as well. Okay, so I think that's a really actually instructive endgame. This endgame reminds me, the reason why I went for this endgame, it reminds me very much of an endgame that's common in the Grunfeld, and I'm going to see if I can remember how it goes. I'm going to need the help of the opening explorer because it's been a while. I believe it's knight f3, c5, rook b1, takes, no. Castles, bishop e2, takes, check, bishop d2, takes here, castles, bishop g4, and there are multiple versions of it. So if bishop g5, I think h6, and let's go bishop e3. I want to see if I can find it. There's an endgame where black sacks the exchange somehow. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. If I do find it, I will post it in the comments. A5. No, I don't think this is it. G5, bishop G3. I know I'm like looking over here because I know there was this fiddler game with it, and I can't find it. Damn. Let's look at this game really quick. No, this is nonsense. This is not it. I will track down the end game. I don't want to waste too much time, like, you know, noodling around. But essentially, there's an end game in this line of the Grunfeld where black gives up the exchange and keeps this bishop, and he has these two queenside pawns. And he goes b6, a5, puts the bishop on c5, and it's nearly identical, and it's very well known that it's a draw and it's not that hard to hold. So I was pretty sure going into that endgame that because I reached an identical endgame in my Grunfeld studies a long time ago that that it shouldn't be that hard to hold and that it was objectively a draw. So sometimes in chess you draw this inspiration from like very weird places. But okay, interesting game. Well played by DrMohammed. Very solid performance, not giving me very many chances. Putting some middle game pressure on me, on my chronically weak dark squares. And yeah, good draw. Nice game. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you again soon for another one.